And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? So, what does that mean? How does it apply to your life? If it even does, that's what we'll explore today. Welcome to the Sunday service. So, in the biblical book of Genesis, we have the story of Cain and Abel. And they were the first two sons of Adam and Eve. Cain, the firstborn, was a farmer, and his brother Abel was a shepherd. Both of them made sacrifices to God. God had regard, which meant that he accepted Abel's offering, but did not regard or accept Cain's offering. So Cain, feeling frustrated, enraged, jealous, resentful, kills Abel and is then cursed by God, sentencing him to a life of transience. So God shows up, said, where's your brother? And Cain, knowing full well that God knows full well what happened, says, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? And that is what I want to explore today. Am I my brother's keeper? What do you think? Are you your brother's keeper? And if yes, how far does that extend? And by brother, I mean your families. Could be your sister, your brother, your cousin, your dad, your mom, your son, your daughter, your grandparents, your grandson, your neighbors, your coworkers, your countrymen and women. How responsible are you for them, if at all? Maybe not at all. Maybe that's not your lane or your responsibility. Maybe you don't want that responsibility. Maybe you don't feel like it's yours to look after or to care for. I don't know. What do you think? That's what I am hoping to inspire today is to explore what you feel your role is. And I think it's a worthwhile one. And I think that this was obviously an important thing to consider and think about at the time of Cain and Abel. And it was true 1,000 years ago, and hopefully, God willing, it'll be true 1,000 years from now. And talks about, again, our workplaces, our families, our friendships, politics. Are all the members of Congress, are they the keepers of one another? Are all the governors of the states, are they keepers of one another? Is the governor of your state a keeper of you and vice versa? I don't know. So God says, where's your brother? Cain says, I don't know. I'm not my brother's keeper. Am I my brother's keeper? What he's saying is that it's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility. But I think that the lesson here is that being human means that we are responsible for more than just ourselves. That's what this is all about. And there's something called a duty of care. That is what I want to really focus and drill down on. And it's more than what it is a legal term, but it's a lot more than that. It is a way of living. It's a way of how we are interacting with other people. I'm a believer that our lives are the sums of the interactions that we have with other people. If it were just you having a solitary existence, it would be just that. It would be a very solitary existence. And I think that we could all agree on that. And I think that we can all intellectually agree that we would be much better off if we all looked after one another. But then the rubber meets the road. And I've got work to do and bills to pay, places to be, people to see, all this stuff. And I'm tired and I'm hungry and all of it. So what I intellectually believe or know to be true doesn't always translate into what I really do. So how do we do that? How do we square that circle? So what is a real meaning, not the technical meaning of a duty of care? I think it means that I see you. I see you as another individual. I think it means that when you're suffering, I am affected and impacted by your suffering. And I think that it means that I will act if I'm able because you matter, because you matter. This is a big theme that I've been on for this, I guess this year, thinking about what really matters. Probably for the past year, I've been thinking about this a lot. What really matters? What truly matters? And it's not obvious. Maybe we think, oh, it's obvious, but do you really know? Do you really know what matters? What is the most important thing? Things. So, duty of care. I see you. I'm affected by your suffering. And if I am able to intervene, to act, I will. Because you, by the very nature of your existence as a human being, and that's the loosest. The tightest is because you're my brother, sister, son, daughter, husband, wife. That is the closest. But viewing humanity, viewing the people that you interact with or come across on a daily basis as your brother slash sister, would that be better? Would that make the world a better place? I think that the answer is definitively yes. And in my memory, there's never been a more important time or a more necessary time to start looking at each other in that way. What it doesn't mean is that I'm not trying to fix everybody's life. I'm not I'm not putting myself on hook for that. I am not going to go around trying to right every wrong or to bring justice to every case of injustice. I'm not going to be Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman. That is not what my goal is. But it does mean that I refuse to turn away from it. So, what happens when we reject it? When we reject a duty of care? So, you know what? It's not my job description. That's not in my job description. That's not my problem. Or I am just doing my job. I didn't cause it. They brought that on themselves. These are all, that's the flip side of the coin. We reject that duty of care when we say stuff like that. Not my problem. Not my responsibility. They brought it on themselves. I think that you can look at the duty of care as a human covenant that we do care for one another, that we are all made in the image of God. We're all God's children, and that the reality there is that we are all brothers and sisters. We're all the children of God, and by virtue of that, we are all brothers and sisters to Cain and Abel and everybody else. So we break that covenant not when we hate people, but when we're indifferent to them. It's indifference. I think that we also do it when we hate them, but I don't know that you hate that many people. I don't know that I hate that many people. I hate some people, but I'm certainly guilty of being indifferent to people. So this isn't me wagging my finger or standing on a soapbox, even though by very nature of me having a podcast means that I'm on a soapbox. But it is something that I know we can all do better at, and that's the idea. Get better, live how you want. And what cost does indifference have? Well, you can see it. It's plain as day. It's clear as day. Erosion of trust, spread of injustice, the hardening of our souls, becoming grossly indifferent to others' suffering, being so removed from it. That's the cost. So, how do we turn that around? How does a duty of care actually show up? Where does it show up? Well, we see it all the time. We just maybe don't notice it. The last time that you had a friend who reached out to you and checked in, just for the sake of checking in, that's duty of care. And I bet you remember when that happened. Why not be that person who does it? It shows up when there's the boss who advocates and goes out of their way to protect their people when nobody's looking for it, or there's not a best places to work award on the line. They're doing it just because they value and care for their brothers and sisters. The person who's just minding their own business, who's a bystander, who sees that there is a need and steps up and becomes, for lack of a better term, an ally in that situation. People like that, people who I aspire to be, those are the people that live like keepers, not because they have to, because they choose to. So, this tension exists because we are all busy, and it's tempting to say, God, I've already got so much on my plate. It's not the right time for me. It's not the right season of my life to do this. And it's a real thing. We all have to make decisions about how we're allocating our most valuable resources of time, attention, energy, and money. And we have to decide what the most important things are. And then we must allocate those resources based on what we believe matters. Again, you have to know what matters, and then you have to do what's necessary in service of what matters. I'm advocating that. Not that we clear our plates, but we look for the opportunities where they lie to exercise, implement, live by that duty of care. It doesn't mean that we have to be doing more, but it means doing a better job of it. And sometimes the deepest kind of care that we can show is by being fully present. I've always known that one of the greatest gifts that we can give to another person is our undivided attention. And that is rare. And when something is rare and scarce, it is of greater value. So just being able to lock in with somebody, give them your full undivided attention is a form of care for sure. But it's also sometimes telling the truth and speaking the truth. No, it's not. This is not okay. What you're saying is not correct. What you're doing is inappropriate. The way that things are going is not prudent. And sometimes it's just sticking around when everybody else is gone. Being present, being there, hanging on, sticking around. So, how do we do this? Well, it's pretty easy. Just think about it. Who needs your care right now, even if they're not asking for it? I'm not suggesting that you insert yourself or again try to solve their problems for them. Just make yourself more available. Just say, hey, just checking in. How are you? I was thinking about you. Just wanted to give you a call and see how you're doing. That's all. No agenda. Nothing on my mind. Then think about, where are you tempted to look away? Where are you being pulled away from? Like, oh my gosh, I just can't. I can't right now. And make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Sometimes it's essential that you cut bait with certain people in your life. That's too toxic. It's too, that you have made the decision that there is no good that can come from continuing the relationship at this time. Fine. But for those circumstances where it's not a terminal problem. You're just tempted to look away because it's a little bit uncomfortable, or you feel like it's a little bit too much of a burden. Maybe there's an opportunity to reconnect there. And I invite you to ask yourself, what would it mean to live as if you are your brother's keeper? What would that mean? What would that look like? If you actually started living with and believing, and I'm asking myself this question too, treating all the other human beings, the jerk who cut you off in traffic, the person who's standing in line and not paying attention, who's on their phone, whatever, what would it take for you to start viewing that person as a child of God, as you are, and therefore as your brother and sister or sister? What would that take? Might not be possible. It's an ideal. You're here. That version of you is there. How do we close the gap? Or at least start moving in the direction of closing that gap. Make that gap a little smaller. That's the trick here. All change, number one, is if you want things to change, you have to, and you desire change, a change is required. And this would be my perspective. This is a shift that you can make right now to start closing that gap, to stop viewing half the country as your enemy, to stop viewing people that you're having conflict with as anything other than your brother or your sister. So, yes, you are your brother's keeper. Yes, you are your sister's keeper. Yes, someone is yours. It's a beautiful quote from Elie Wiesel. Said that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And I will close with this wonderful story, and maybe you've heard it. It's the parable of the long spoons, the allegory of the long spoons. And it goes like this. One day, man asked God, he said, God, can you show me heaven and hell? What are heaven and hell like? God took the man and showed him two doors. Behind the first door opens up. The first thing that the man noticed was a beautiful smell in the air. Just delicious, delicious smell. It smelled amazing. And his mouth just started to water immediately. Incredible smells. Then he looked around the room and he was horrified. He saw a big wooden circular table. And in the middle of the table was this giant bowl of stew, which is where this delicious smell was emanating from. But around the table were these people, and they looked terrible. They were on death's doorstep. They were on the verge of starvation. They were all in legitimate agony. And he noticed that tied to their arms were these long spoons. And the spoons were long enough to reach into the bowl of stew, but too long to bring it back into their mouths. So they were starving to death. They could smell the food, they could see it, they could even reach it, but they couldn't bring it to their mouths. The man shuddered. God said, you have seen hell. Second door opens. Same smell. Almost an identical scene. Delicious stew, circular table. People sitting around this table, same spoons attached to their arms. Difference was, these people were plump, happy, smiling, interacting. They just couldn't have been having a better time. The man said, God, I don't understand. God said, well, it's simple. It's simple. To love one another requires only one skill. It's to feed and to care for other people. These people have learned to feed one another. So what we're talking about today, the duty of care. The duty of care. How can we feed one another instead of all starving to death on our own? There's no reason to be on a solitary journey. There's no reason to view the people that you see every day as adversaries or as enemies or stupid or less than. And that's the trap that we're falling into. We are being separated, we are being divided, and it is killing us. It is killing our discourse at every level, politics and sports and the most fundamental things like boys and girls, men and women. And we would all benefit from remembering and taking that step back and remembering and realizing that we're a lot more similar to one another than we are different. Practice that duty of care. We're all children of God. We're all brothers and sisters. As always, do your part by doing your best.